Trooper Bukhenik was up on the stand again to continue direct examination. Lally asked him, based on the videos from McCarthy's and the waterfall, how many drinks in total Karen Reed had, and he says 9 drinks. I think it's pretty hard to tell, at least from the waterfall video. Also, throughout the trial, the defense kept saying, well, you saw a clear liquid, so you don't know what that was. However, having said that, they do have receipts, which we have not seen yet. Lally moved on to the ring motion activated cameras outside of John O'Keefe's house. And the witness said that it would capture a bird landing, which is utter nonsense. I had one of those and I ended up getting a second camera because that motion activated one missed so much, including times when somebody was actually on my doorstep and times when I went in and out through that door. So I had to get a second camera. So this, it would capture a bird landing, is poppycock. Lally asked the witness what was not captured by the ring video at John's. And I'm going to play you what he said, because what he said and how he said it was very interesting. Here it is.
It would have been captured from the defendant arriving home after midnight on the 29th, after she dropped Mr. O'Keefe off at 34 Fairview Road. That video was not present in the data that was returned from Ring.
So just the way he was phrasing this caught my attention. So I want to hear more. I have questions. If I was simply having a conversation with this guy, I would be kind of drilling down on this as to why he is stating it the way he is. There is a reason. He also indicated that there was a missing portion of video showing Reed showing McCabe and Roberts the damage on her taillight. Well, hold on a second. We saw video of Roberts and McCabe arriving there. We heard testimony that Karen was showing them the damage and we didn't see them look. We did see them arrive. So when he's saying that this video is missing, how does he know it's missing? Was there video present that shows that it was somehow deleted? And it's motion activated, so it's not like you can rely on a timestamp. Is it that the Ring camera just never picked that up? Because that happens? Or could there be a more obvious explanation, which is that Jen McCabe was lying? He said he got notes as to that recording, or took notes. I think I missed some there. He said that he obtained notes from Dighton Police, so their call log when he called Dighton Police for the assist. And he also got the 911 call from Mr. Reed on that day. Lally brought him through February 3rd, on which date they conducted another search. And he said they were looking for John O'Keefe's hat. He said there was one person there from Crime Scene Services who documented via camera, who took pictures of all of these items. And it's odd to me that the troopers are conducting a search. It's good that they have CSS there, finally, but it's just odd to me that they wouldn't have Crime Scene Services do the search. Usually those guys want everybody out of their way. They go through a series of photos, and you can see the grass is exposed because the CERT team exposed it. And the trooper said, well, it was warmer, the snow was starting to melt, but about this photo, he did say that it was exposed by the CERT team from a previous search. And they showed this piece of evidence found. It should all be shown in the broader context of the property. This one is shown in the context of the fire hydrant, so at least you have an idea of where it is. But they didn't do that with the rest of the photos. You just see a close-up of the item in the snow, and you're not seeing scales or diagrams or anything else. I don't know, maybe they'll come later, but they're just running through these pictures of these items found there. And as Lally goes through these pictures, just droning on, not giving any context for any of it. We don't know who found what. The judge interrupted and called them to a sidebar. This one, they do show in context, sort of. You see a black straw on the street. Here's a close-up. What is that? Is that I thought it was a cigarette butt. Oh, look, a ruler! The black straw could have come from anywhere. Who knows? But I suppose they have to look. But this is February 3rd now. And you gotta wonder, for the pieces that are found on the road, for anything that's found on the road, how is it there? I mean, the street's been plowed, right? Why is it there and not like a block away? They show another piece of plastic. This was a clear, flat piece of malleable plastic. I don't know where that ends up coming from. They did mention finding blood in the grass, but there was no picture of that. And you know, if they did find that, it would be magic again, because earlier at the very beginning of the trial, you saw photos of where John O'Keefe was laying. And what you saw was snow. And there was some pink in the snow where the EMT said, yeah, you can see some pooling here on top of the snow. And there were other drops on top of the snow that they collected in the solo cups. So for the blood to soak down and get into the ground, it would have to be magic, because that snow, had it been soaked with blood enough that it wouldn't be diluted by the melting of the snow later on, that snow would have had to have been red, and it was not. And you remember those solo cups filled with that red liquid that was not taken by the lab, that was left with Canton police? We never did hear about what happened to those cups full of blood. Where are they? Where are they now? Wouldn't take much to empty them onto the grass and say, hey, look. But you know what? I don't know. We didn't see any pictures of bloodstains on the screen in front of you. You're looking at where they said they excavated. And this is on the road. And I note there is quite a bit of snow on top of this item. There is, don't know if you can see my cursor, a little bit of snow under it. Not a lot. Lots up here. But because it's on the road, we don't know how much was put there by the plow, or how much had fallen, or how much had ended up there as a result of the search. We don't know. But what that thing turns out to be here is John's hat. And they show a picture here that is supposedly when they've excavated it. And oh, look, there's grass underneath. We just saw it on pavement. How is there grass underneath here now? I'm going to go back. Here it is. There's pavement. Here's a closer look at that. Does that look like grass to you? It doesn't look like grass to me. But here, it's suddenly in the grass, under the snow, caked with the snow. Does this portion here look the same as what you just saw? Did you see this round, sort of irregular line here? Did you see that in the other picture? Did you see this grass in the other picture? I'm telling you right now, this hat was moved. And you know what else I don't notice here? I don't notice the ruler from the crime scene services guy. Turns out that Bukhenik went back again on February 4th. So we've seen February 3rd, he's gone back on February 4th. And he was asked what brought him there. And he gave this big explanation about how he told troopers to drive by there every day. Big explanation here. How he decided he should drive by. Why does he feel it's so necessary to explain? Because the answer to Lally's question, how did you come to be there, wasn't that he was driving by. The answer is that he was notified that there were Canton police officers there. He said just prior to his arrival, he received a call saying that there was Canton police presence at the scene. His arrival. He's saying he was driving by, and now he's calling it an arrival, but okay, and that more items had been revealed. He said he was down the street, so he arrived and collected the item that presented itself. Well, this explains his big explanation. I think he felt it necessary to explain how it was that he got there so fast because he was just down the street. Where does he live? He said on January 29th, it took him a long time to get to Canton PD. He said like 45 minutes. He'd only been on call, so it's not like he was in some other office far away. He was on call. So one would think that given it's a blizzard, he would be home on call. And it took 45 minutes to get there. Now he's saying he lives nearby. Does anyone know if he lives in town? And then Lally asks him on February 3rd, 4th, and any subsequent days as to him searching there. And any subsequent days. So vague. And Lally gives him something in reference to a search that took place on February 10th. And the witness doesn't recognize what he's been given. He said they're not his own notes. And I want to know why he doesn't have his notes with him. And for all of these items collected on all of these different days, why were they not sent to the lab immediately? And the dates of recovery were January 29th, February 8th, February 11th, and February 18th. Oh, and February 3rd, 4th, and 10th. And on February 4th, he was alone, but there were Canton police officers present. And I swear, it seems like Lally is confusing on purpose or meandering on purpose. So they give Bukhenik this box. And watch this. It just pops right open. It's just like an old box reused. So not really an evidence box. So these contained a number of items, including a hat, pieces of plastic. So that means these extra pieces of plastic weren't attached to the housing assembly as part of that nice puzzle. And the straw. And he's going to open this bag, which again is so pristine. And the magician is going to pull a hat out of a bag. Look at that hat. Look at how pristine it looks. He said they found a red taillight cover, more plastic. Lally got him to say that there was no evidence of McCabe and Reed and Roberts leaving One Meadows. Well, maybe that ring video disappeared. I think that's the implication, right? Lally gets him to say again, the video of Reed arriving to One Meadows after dropping off O'Keefe is missing. And what are they suggesting this means? Yes, I know what they're suggesting, but you know what? It's rich, considering they actually had responsibility for videos, including videos from inside a police facility, and videos go missing. So it's okay for them, but I guess if video is apparently missing from other places, well, it must mean something terrible. Higgins did speak with Proctor, and this witness testified that Higgins provided a printout of a Celebrite extraction. Oh, really? Is that what it was? Is that what that machine prints out? Is that machine Celebrite? Is that what it is? Or is it not a Celebrite extraction and Higgins told them it was? Who knows? He testified that he did go inside Fairview to interview Nicole Albert, and that during that interview, Brian Albert was present. And then he talked about how long it should take for an interview. And Lally elicited this, and I'm wondering what Lally's up to here, because Bukhenik said it takes 45 minutes minimum for an interview to get everything out of somebody. And really, personally, I think 45 minutes is pretty short. unless the interview is about a very minor, simple, fast thing. 45 minutes to discuss issues and observations and memories and whatnot related to a crime this big. 45 minutes would be short, in my opinion. Then they played an audio recording of Reed. So I said in my last video, gee, why didn't they do an audio recording of this interview with Reed? Well, it turns out they had, except they only played one sentence. So this audio is horrible, but for the sake of doing this properly, I am going to play it for you.
Okay, you're aware he was speeding up at Brand I mean, we're all on the same joke, right? My taillight was cracked and John was pulverized.
And that was all they played. My taillight is cracked and John is pulverized. Well, that's completely out of context. There are so many contexts within which that statement would make sense and still be an innocent statement. And this was prejudicial, in my opinion. If you're going to play audio to the jury, play it. Play the whole thing. Let them hear it then. Have you ever had anyone take your words out of context? Imagine if your life depended on what people interpreted and how people presented what they call facts about you. And Lally asked him, well, what did you do in response to this? And Bukhenik said he advised her not to further speak. Oh, really? I want to hear that then. Why aren't we hearing that? I want to hear it. And then it came out that both he and Trooper Proctor gave DNA samples, and they didn't explain why. Now, usually that sort of thing is done, they're called elimination samples, just like they do elimination prints, so that if there was DNA or prints found at a scene that could possibly belong to an investigator, they have to rule that out. So they're not running around looking for whose DNA that might be. So both of these troopers gave DNA, but then the direct examination ended and Lally didn't explain why they had to give DNA and whether or not that was for the purposes of elimination. Then they got to cross-examination. He was not the one who filled out the warrant for One Meadows for that ring. The affiant was Proctor. Proctor was the one who received the information, who received the evidence, the ring video. Proctor had control of all of the information and the video. And they had asked for Ring to send them an activity log so it would show if somebody deleted something. And Jackson asked him if there was any evidence that Reed ever logged in. And the answer was there was no evidence provided by Ring. So he's not going to say that she never logged in. Well, Jackson pushed back on this one. It appears that Ring did contact Proctor and gave him a Dropbox folder that did contain the evidence that they were seeking. And you know what? Lally objected to this. The activity logs were provided by Ring. Jackson confronts him again, and he says, I do not recall. Wow. Jackson says to him, in fact, throughout your whole investigation, there is no evidence that Ms. Reed ever even had access to Mr. O'Keefe's ring. And the witness agrees. The witness said that when he was notified about the individual on the ground at Fairview on January 29th, he was not aware at that time that it was a Boston police officer. He just knew it was a man on the ground, possibly a heart attack. Jackson asked if either he or Trooper Proctor responded to 34 Fairview on January 29th, and the witness says neither one of them did. And that's Weird. Comes out here that by 10:41 a.m. on January 29th, the troopers had not yet interviewed any civilian witnesses. Jackson says to the witness, "You contacted Good Samaritan Hospital and told them that the victim had been struck on the face with a cocktail glass." And the witness says he doesn't remember that. So now Jackson's going to approach. The witness says he never spoke to Good Samaritan Hospital. That's not true. That was the medical examiner's office. Well, that makes it all even more interesting. You could understand police first coming into an investigation, not having all the information or having some information that is inaccurate. But by the time the thing gets to a medical examiner, you would think that they would have more information or accurate information, unless their theory here is that she struck him with the cocktail glass and then ran over him. We'll have to see. So Jackson keeps trying to ask him, look, did you call anybody and say that this case was being treated as suspicious because of a domestic, that the victim had been struck in the face with a cocktail glass? And Lally objects. And finally, at one point, the judge says, well, did you say that? And finally, the witness says, yeah, I did say that to somebody at the medical examiner's office. I don't know why he has to hedge or try and hide that. Why doesn't he just say so? So it all suggests that this idea of Reed running him over may have come after the fact. Jackson asks him a pointed question, and that is, given that he believed that Officer O'Keefe's death was due to a physical altercation, well, what steps did you take to find out if maybe anyone in the house had a physical altercation with him? And the witness starts out by talking about, well, we have to go where the evidence leads. It's almost like, and this is just my impression, it's almost like he realized that was not the way to go. And so he said, well, he did talk to a witness, and that was Miss McCabe. But Miss McCabe doesn't live at Fairview. Why wouldn't he go into Fairview? And why not go into Fairview right away on the day? And Jackson asks him, you didn't secure the crime scene, the interior of the house at Fairview? And he says, no, he didn't. He never took photos of the interior of the house. He never caused crime scene services to go inside. Remember, he's a supervisor. He could have and should have done that. He said, oh, well, the scene was secured, and he's referring to CERT. But they didn't secure the scene. They just searched it. And that was much later. If he's saying he got this call, this notification at 6:44 a.m., it's bewildering. Why, then, he would not ensure that somebody secured that crime scene. Jackson goes through the collection of O'Keefe's clothes from the floor. And this witness confirms that he and Proctor collected the evidence, bagged the evidence. He confirms that it was soaked and that it needed to be laid out to dry. So this is a little bit, I'm going to say, unclear, because although he did say this yesterday in a roundabout sort of disjointed way, he also said that crime scene services was called to the hospital to photograph and document the clothes. We have not seen those photographs yet. I don't know if we will. And so if crime scene services is there photographing and documenting the clothes at the hospital, then why do he and Proctor have to collect and bag the clothing? And who took it back to the station and when? Because it sounds like they went from the hospital to Dighton. Where were the clothes? Maybe we'll find out. I was hoping that I was mistaken in my understanding, but it comes out through Cross that yes, he and Proctor collected those clothes. They went straight from the hospital to Dighton. They went from Dighton to the Canton Police Department because they had to follow the vehicle back. And Jackson asked him, well, where was the evidence during all this time? He says they were stored in the back passenger compartment of his pickup truck. And they didn't get back with those until late at night. He says around 10 or so, but who the heck knows? And a wet evidence, and he should know this, soaking wet evidence is evidence that is degrading. Why were they in such a hurry to get to Dighton? If they needed to secure that vehicle right away, or secure the phone, if they had a warrant, if they needed to make sure that Reed didn't flee, well, they could have called Dighton Police for an assist on that. And how then do crime scene services fit in? Because he testified yesterday that he sent them to the hospital to document the clothing as well as the victim. Well, if they went to the hospital, why don't they just take it? This is all messed up. And the witness does not recall who took charge of those items of clothing when they were laid out. Why aren't crime scene services doing that anyway? Jackson says to him, well, was it you or Trooper Proctor? And he says, I don't recall. Not recalling whether or not you stopped on the way for coffee is one thing. Not recalling whether you laid out bloody evidence to dry is another thing. And if he or any trooper had laid out this evidence, according to him himself, all of that should be documented. It should all be logged. So where are his notes? Why can't he just say, gee, can I refer to my notes? Does he not have notes? There should be no, I don't recall on such a critical subject. Sometimes things come up in a case that turn out to be important and the officers involved didn't realize at the moment that the thing was going to be really important. So it's understandable to forget a thing like that. But no police officer, especially a supervisor, is going to fail to recognize that handling evidence in any respect is very important. And if their chain of custody is so great and it's all well documented, well, where are the documents? This I don't recall on this particular subject is not an acceptable answer. Then it comes out that once the clothes were laid out to dry by this other trooper I don't recall, well, Bukhenik said he went home. And Jackson's asking, well, who was watching the evidence then while it's drying? And he says nobody. He said it's in a secure area. And in all fairness, I do kind of understand where he's coming from. You don't expect other officers to mess with it. Well, Jackson asks, well, who had access then to this area? Well, this is very different from who has access to evidence storage, because troopers, and he says it in general terms, would have access to that area. And that includes Trooper Proctor. And the witness is saying, well, as far as who actually bagged and logged that evidence into the evidence locker, well, I don't know. So Jackson's going to approach him on that. Beautiful. He got Bukhenik to read the description of what was in that evidence bag that on his right-hand side there, that Trooper Proctor bagged and logged. It's got his name on it, that it was seized from Good Samaritan Hospital. And guess what's in the bag? A gray shirt and an orange shirt. They were bagged together. And the bag on Bukhenik's left says on the front that it's a gray sweatshirt. And you see the difference in those two bags. As I was saying in my last video, one is pristine and the other has obviously been opened and handled as is expected. And it was odd that that sweater was all of a sudden magically, more magic in this case, than one of Houdini's shows. Anyway, magically in that bag. Wow. Jackson tries to get him to confirm that, look, this one bag on the left here, the one with the yellow and red tape on it, this one originally contained both the gray sweatshirt and the orange shirt together. Isn't that correct? And the witness says, well, that's what it says, but I don't know if that's a fact. And that is hilarious because he's saying he can't trust what's written on the evidence bags. Are they accurate or are they not? Is their chain of custody so great or maybe not so great? Jackson points out that there's another label on the bag that he's got in his hand here in the picture, and that label says February 4th. Jackson gets into this February 4th date, and he wants to know why, if these items were collected on January 29th, are they not logged into evidence for 6 days? And Bukhenik hedges a bit. Well, maybe that's just when they made the label. And Jackson says, well, is there any other label on there? You said that it gets logged in and it all gets recorded. So, the witness is not going to get away with this, right? So then Jackson says, well, where was it for 6 days? And Bukhenik offers, well, maybe it was drying on the table. So it's clear either he doesn't know what was going on with the evidence, or he does know and doesn't want to say. Jackson says, you're aware that the first physical log of any chain of custody for these items, these shirts, was March 14th. Bukhenik says, no, that's not true. There was a log when we collected them. And Jackson says, oh, where is it? Bukhenik said, well, it went in our reports. And Jackson correctly says, well, anyone can write a report. I can tell you that I've seen some pretty bad reports full of inaccuracies, or reports that omit really important things. And back to the notebooks, this is why notebooks get subpoenaed. And this is why reports are not evidence, because police officers are human beings. And even officers who are good at their jobs, who have no ill intention toward anyone, who are trying their best, well, sometimes you miss something, you make a typo, you make a mistake, it happens. So police reports are informative, but they are not in themselves evidence. So the fact that he's got a report, okay, but where's the log? And he can't answer because Lally jumps up and objects and the judge sustains it. And this is killing me. This is standard stuff. This is documentation 101, chain of custody 101. And it's critical. And you're watching this trial, you can see why that is so important. And if there's a log and the log shows what they claim is true, well then, why not show it? Because that would protect the police and protect the Commonwealth from any kind of allegation, and it would shut up people who are criticizing them. So just show the logs. The only reason not to is because it's going to show something that is not good. So Jackson's on him. Where was this evidence? What was going on with it prior to March 14th? And then finally, Jackson says to him, there is no log, is there, Sergeant? And the answer was, I don't know. He's a supervisor. He testified yesterday about how everything is logged, but he doesn't know now. Wow. Jackson asks him about searches on February 4th and February 10th. And confronts him with, hey, you didn't write any report about your conduct or what you did during those searches, did you? And he says, I don't recall doing that. No, as in he doesn't recall going back to the station and generating a report. Jackson asked him, well, did you take any photographs? And he says no, but in all fairness, it should be crime scene services. Actually, I just find it weird that detectives would be participating in a search at all. I mean, unless we're talking about a missing person they're hoping to find alive. Because usually forensics wants you the heck out of there. They want to make sure that everything is covered. And if they're doing it themselves, they know what's been covered. They know it's been covered properly. They can then testify and be questioned and cross-examined on it. and they know the answers because they did the work. So this whole thing is just foreign to me. Is this the way that they always do it there? It's just foreign to me. I'm sorry. I hope I'm not offending anybody by saying that. Back to the photographs. In fairness, it's crime scene services who should be taking photographs. And I notice in the litany of photographs presented earlier, they still didn't explain who found it, how they found it. Was it excavated? Was it just that the snow had melted? Where's the diagram in respect to the distances to scale from the house, from the flagpole, from the fire hydrant? All of that. The photographs were great. And, it was great that they found a ruler. So crime scene services should be photographing.
And the first report that indicates anything that happened or was recovered at the location on either February 4th or February 10th, that was first notated in a report dated November 4th, 2023, year and several months later, correct?
That is shocking. If you watch a lot of trials or you go to court, very often you'll hear a lawyer ask when an officer made his or her notes. And the reason is because it's important that those notes get made either at the time or very close to the time of the event that is being reported upon. And you're trained to make contemporaneous notes. That's important in court. And that some report wasn't generated for almost a year is, again, mind-boggling. Then again, he hasn't answered yet. I should be quiet and let him answer. Let's see what his excuse is. His answer was, if you say so. I don't know the exact date. In respect to the February 4th search at Fairview, the report indicates, and the witness agrees, that he responded to 34 Fairview. And the witness said, I responded to 34 Fairview on my own. So that was an interesting little utterance there. Jackson confronts him and says, hey, that's because you were notified by Chief Berkowitz. And the witness says no, but he does agree that Berkowitz was there when he got there. What's up with that? He says he didn't coordinate that with Berkowitz, that he was driving by there. And his excuse was that he would be driving by on his way to work. Jackson confronts him on the fact that, hey, you knew that Canton police were recused. And this witness says, well, I knew they were recused only in respect to interviews. But wait a minute. Earlier, he was asked about who had jurisdiction. This is an unattended death. And so the DA's office has jurisdiction, and that means state police are assigned. If it's in Canton, it would be state police. So it is the state police who have jurisdiction, not Canton PD anyway. So this business of saying, oh, we're only recused in respect to conducting interviews is a little bit of muddying the waters here. I mean, I could see them saying, all right, if we need an assist, we can't get them to do interviews. But this is not the state police asking for an assist here. This is not that. Jackson confronts him and says, you knew that Canton police were to have nothing to do with this investigation. Instead of answering the question that they were supposed to have nothing to do with the investigation, the witness said they were not conducting the investigation. No. Look, if a suspect was talking like this in the interview room, they'd be all over it. Jackson tries to get some other information out of him in respect to knowing that Berkowitz was speaking with Higgins, and Lally kept objecting, so he couldn't get it out. So he moved on to February 10th, when Bukhenik returned to the scene, and Jackson wants to know who dispatched you out there. So it turns out he wasn't dispatched out. He said, well, he was driving by because he was driving by all the time, back and forth to work on purpose, driving by. And whenever he saw evidence, that he would make sure it was collected. And Jackson asks him, you know that if you find anything of evidentiary value, that it's important to your case, right? And on that February 10th search, he didn't bother to get crime scene services out there. And the items recovered on February 10th, therefore, were not photographed or diagrammed or measured or anything like that. And they don't even know where they were found. The witness can't give a location where they were found except to say in the area. The witness narrows it down at least and says, well, maybe we're talking about an area of about 30 square feet from the roadway into the grass. And Jackson's asking him, did you measure? Did you, say, take a reference point like the flagpole or where another known item was found and measure the distance away from that to where you found the next items on February 10th, a cross point, a diagram? And the answer is no, they didn't. So it wasn't photographed. How do you do a reconstruction, if that's what you're going to do, without measurements? And it should be stunning that a supervisor doesn't make sure that this is done. Look at this. It says, collected by Sergeant Bukhenik. And these 6 pieces where they don't know where they came from that were in the area. So who knows if each of these 6 pieces were found 10 feet apart or 30 feet apart? Who knows? Well, Bukhenik is saying, I didn't fill that bag. But guess what? His name is on it. And Jackson is suggesting to him, that's Trooper Proctor's handwriting, isn't it? And Bukhenik says, I didn't fill that bag. Bukhenik also says, that's not my handwriting. And that evidence, that plastic, didn't go to the crime lab until March 14th. And Bukhenik said, I was not aware of that, no. So here we have this supervisor sitting on the stand being faced with this official document, if you will, the front of this evidence bag with his name on it. That's not in his writing, that he didn't collect. So obviously, he does not have knowledge and control over the evidence and what's happening with the evidence. So right here, for him to say, I don't know anything that he insists upon in respect to evidence handling being proper, or that he said, oh no, absolutely not. The plastic would not be put in the same bag as the shirt. Well, he can't say that now. He can't say he knows anything now about how evidence is handled or who's doing what. Jackson gives him a bit of an out by saying, hey, the reason you didn't write a report is because you figured Proctor would write the report, right? Bukhenik won't pass the buck necessarily here. He doesn't give a clear yes or no here, and Jackson eventually has to move on. And depending on your life experience and the way you perceive things, you can read this in a couple of ways. You can read this as a supervisor who is seeing how something got really messed up, and he's not going to throw his underling under the bus. Or you can say he's not taking responsibility either. So I don't know how you want to read that. I can tell you, though, that very often a supervisor will do something and the people under him end up having to write the reports. So Jackson gave him the out and he didn't quite take it. Jackson switches gears to the ring video, the 5 o'clock in the morning one. Jackson tells the witness, so I'll tell you, as you watch the video, pay close attention to the rear tire here that's enlarged on the screen.
Object to this. So why don't we pause?
Except Lally objects. Why? If there's no problem, if his case is solid, then why? And you know, Lally asked on direct about this contact or these two vehicles being close together. Gee, did you see any red on the ground? So here we have a close-up view and he wants to object to this? Now, why is that?
Pause it. Okay, in about the next 3 seconds, starts by asking, pay special attention to. Go ahead.
Wow, that clearly hit hard enough to make that wheel move. And given the angle here, that it wasn't front to back or back to back. So if the wheel was straight in the same direction it was being pushed, you might expect it to move a little more. She hit this hard. Jackson asks the witness, what would you assess based on the movement of the wheel as to whether or not these vehicles came into contact with each other? Well, a fourth grader could answer this, and it's obvious to the jury. And Lally objected. Hey, wait a minute. This is a state trooper with many years of experience. He is in a position to make such an assessment or an opinion. Yet Lally objects. But earlier on direct, Lally was trying to get out of this same witness basically medical testimony for which he has no qualification. As far as I can tell, nothing like that was presented. And that's okay, though. It's okay for him to assess like that and say something like that. But Lally doesn't want him to say the vehicle moved? Come on. Jackson asks him if he went to Canton and got surveillance video from the Canton Police Sally Port. And the witness said, I did go to Canton and I got video that was already extracted. Extracted by whom? And extracted by somebody at the police department who had a big, huge conflict and was recused and shouldn't be extracting anything. And Bukhenik says he only got a portion of video. Wow. The video seen yesterday from the Sally Port wasn't collected until just a few weeks ago. And this witness says he was not the one who collected it. They're showing this video, and the witness is testifying that this is the driver's side of the vehicle because the video is shown in a mirror. Well, that information would have been useful yesterday. Jackson asks the witness, can you see a time and date stamp at the bottom here? The witness says no. And Jackson says, well, even though you can't read the actual words or numbers, does that time and date stamp appear to be inverted? And when he's asked whether or not he can see that it's inverted, the witness says he can't tell whether it's inverted. He can't see it. Well, we've seen it, and it's not inverted. The witness testifies that the person getting out of the car, he thinks is the tow truck driver. So in my previous video, I said, hey, why did they only take a picture of the front of the vehicle? And the guy goes back in the vehicle. So it's not clear still whether this is the tow truck driver or if it isn't. The witness today is doing better at identification. He says he is wearing a dark style baseball cap and Trooper Proctor is wearing a winter cap. So this person who walked from here, I hope you can see my cursor, to here is looks like it's Trooper Proctor, and he's going, according to this, if it's inverted, he's going to the rear passenger side of the vehicle. Jackson confronts him, says, you've testified about this video, and the whole time that you testified, you said it was an accurate representation, and you know that it's going to look to the jury like this is the right rear passenger side that's facing the camera here. And at no time did you ever mention the fact that this video is inverted. So all that video that we've been looking at, or that I've been looking at, watching to see if anything happened to that tail light, watching for that dolly that was there. I was watching that because it was unstable. Well, none of that was the right rear passenger side tail light. It's on the opposite side. Oh, and guess what? The camera does not pick up what's going on that passenger side. And that passenger side is right at the door where everybody's going in and out and in and out. So look at that. That person closest to the door, so up here, at the passenger side tail light, because now we're looking at this, now we know we're looking at this in reverse, is there unattended at that tail light. Nobody can see what he's doing, if anything, why he's there. Jackson's asking him about this person who's just kind of hovering here at this passenger rear taillight. And the witness hedges. Well, don't know how really far away he is from it. You know, it would be pretty easy to find out. You can measure the distance between the doors or the wall. You can take measurements of this to scale. There's a way to do it. So Jackson says, pay attention to what this person behind the car is doing as soon as this person in the forefront comes out from behind the car. So we're going to play this and we'll see what he does. Jackson can't help but snark a little. Obviously, we saw this person turn around and move as soon as that other guy had an eye line or was within eyesight. Makes you wonder. Of course, there could be an innocent explanation, but you know, the witness won't say. He won't say he turned around. He won't say, gee, he moved. Nothing. He says, well, the video speaks for itself. And Jackson says, yes, it does. And Lally objected to that. So Jackson wants it backed up 10 seconds to look at this again. And he wants the witness to pay special attention to the timestamps. Now, on the live feed that I am looking at, I don't see timestamps on my screen, so hopefully they adjust that. Here goes. So Jackson points out what we noticed in this video yesterday, which is that this person, and you could see somebody sort of appeared. Yesterday, I commented about how it's magic video, that they just appeared there and then appeared to be walking away. And Jackson points out that the timestamp also jumped.
I cannot see the timestamp, sir. No, Your Honor, I cannot tell what is happening with the video.
He can't tell what's happening with the video. And Jackson's saying, well, doesn't it appear that there's an anomaly? And the witness isn't going to say that. And Jackson even provided sort of a saving face kind of moment. Like, I'm not saying it was deleted. It's just missing. Did you notice that? And the witness, no, he doesn't know what happened to the video. So I want to bring up again here, Lally's direct examination and the implications that he makes about video being missing from John O'Keefe's ring footage and the implication that somehow maybe Karen Reed did it when there is zero evidence that she would have any access to that. So I guess the rules are different depending on which side you're on. Oh, look at that. I didn't notice this yesterday. See the back of this police vehicle? The word police is inverted. So that would have been a giveaway that this was a mirrored image. And now I'm kicking myself for not noticing that. I was so focused on the people and what they were doing. Jackson tries to introduce this thumb drive and he wants to just show 10 seconds of video. The judge says no. She wants to wrap up the morning. And so they go to sidebar, which is probably going to take more than 10 seconds. And that was it. So next week is full days, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And that's all I've got for you for now. Trust your gut. I'll see you in the comments.